So how into the Super Bowl were you, and how interested were you as it actually unfolded, John?
I wasn't either way. The Wolves played at 2:00 on Super Bowl Sunday, and so we did that game, and it was a disaster. But then I was watching it in the press room as it was unfolding. And then I was able to get home for the second half and watch that. And it just was not a very competitive or compelling game. The one I was genuinely happy for Sam Darnold and for the pathway that he has had to navigate all the way from the beginnings in New York through Minnesota to where he is now. And so from a big picture perspective, I was happy and generally satisfied with the outcome of the game, but the game itself, I didn't think was, very interesting at all outside of some really, really great defense from Seattle.
Yeah, I felt the same way. I think Mike Macdonald's a really likable guy, really low ego, really doesn't want any attention on him. Leslie Frazier is assistant head coach, one of our favorite people. Sam Darnold, whatever judgment you've ever made about Sam Darnold as a quarterback, he handles himself really well. Very popular teammate. Never, and even when the Vikings dumped him, no recriminations, no pot shots, no pettiness. He's handled himself beautifully through the whole thing, and then he gets the big reward. I am happy for him. Then he got John Schneider and Trent Kirchner, Minnesota guys, or at least Minnesota
St. Thomas,
school
baby.
Guys. That's right. Schneider went to school at St. Thomas, Kirchner at St. John's. They're kind of run the personnel stuff there. Seattle's a really well-run organization, and it's kind of cool to see them win. And I was happy about that. The game, I didn't expect much going in, and I got very little watching. It just wasn't that good a game.
Yeah, I was just going to say, just you're right in terms of I had very low expectations for it. And I left Target Center to get home for the second half, and I think it was 3-0 or 6-0. And I'm like, yep, this tracks it with exactly the way that it went. At least we saw a little bit more in the second half, a little bit more action. But I can't remember a Super Bowl that was probably as sort of underwhelming a matchup and then absolutely delivered on being underwhelming the way that this one did.
Yeah. Okay. Let's ask the big question here for this market, which is, did we as Vikings observers learn anything about what it takes to win the Super Bowl? Should the Vikings have taken anything from this Super Bowl? Let's get to that. This is the Viking Update Show. He's John Krasinski from The Athletic. I'm Jim Suhan from the Star Tribune and TalkNorth.com. This is one of our football shows. Alec Lewis, Athletic beat writer covering the Vikings, also does a great show on this network. And periodically he joins John and I on this show. His debut on this show was last week. You might want to go look it up. He had a lot of great insights into what's going on behind the scenes and in all the job searches for this Vikings team right now. We are coming to you from the Aquarius Home Services Studio. We're presented to you by OnX Hunt. We appreciate our sponsors, and everybody who listens and watches the show is also available on YouTube, as is the John Krasinski Show, one of our most popular shows at TalkNorth.com. All right, so watching that through the purple prism, one of the things that struck me was very good defensive head coach, Leslie Frazier, and his assistant head coach helping oversee the defense. And they had a defense that didn't thrive because of star power. It thrived because of coaching, depth, and scheme. That's kind of what we see out of the Vikings at their best.
Yeah, absolutely. And I thought that it was such a mature approach by the Seahawks in that game in terms of you heard a lot of them talk after the game about just this overwhelming feeling that the Patriots don't have what it takes to match up with us from, an offensive standpoint to our defense. And so knowing that, what the Seahawks did offensively was very careful, conservative. Kick field goals when you got them. We're not going for it on 4th and 5 from our own 40. That kind of a thing was just, let's move the ball down the field, let's kick field goals, and we're going to win. And so it can be, I think, one thing that the Vikings did fall into a bit of a trap with this season is, man, you have this great defense, but you really want to also flex offensively, and you really want to make big plays, and you want to be creative. And that's, that's admirable, and you should want to do that. But in the absence of having a quarterback and an offense that is capable of doing that, very consistently, the right play for the Seahawks was to be boring offensively and just win the freaking game. And that's what they did. And you're right with that defense. I mean, the pressure was coming from everywhere. You could have picked 4 different guys who could have been the MVP of that unit and really of the game. And so that's a blueprint that the Vikings should look at a little bit, if they go back with JJ McCarthy next year and be like, hey, maybe just simplify things on offense, lean on that defense, and see where that gets you.
I'm really glad you brought that up, because sometimes fans, the public, even the media confuses coaching talking points with reality. Coaching talking points are not reality. They are an attempt to achieve the optimal. It's an attempt to put the optimal thought in your players' heads. That's not realistic. So what do we hear all the time coaches say? You can't, you got to get touchdowns, not field goals. Touchdowns, not field goals. You got to get touchdowns, not field goals. Oh, you got to score touchdowns in the red zone. The reality is you don't have to. You don't. If you're playing, the Detroit Lions of 2 years ago, maybe you have to. But a lot of games are won on field goals, and a lot of games are lost because you didn't kick the field goal and you went for it and you didn't make it. 3 points is a significant number of points in the NFL, and 3 field goals is more than 1 touchdown. The idea, and so I think analytics are real. They're facts, right? They're a set of facts. They should never be dismissed. But you don't have to buy into the idea that you have to go for it on every 4th down and you have to go, you should never settle for a field goal. There are absolutely situations where a field goal is not only fine, but it might win you the game.
Yeah, exactly. And much of the analytic movement, understandably and intelligently, is built on large sample sizes over the course of months, weeks, years, what works and what doesn't. Where the coach has to really come in, and where it's integral to making sure that you are, Chris Finch always says we use analytics as a guide, not a god. And the reason that is that the sample size of the Super Bowl is very small. Like, it is one game, it is one play within a game, and it's on the coach to be able to interpret when you look at the larger trends versus when you look at this specific game against this specific rookie or second-year quarterback that's really struggling against this offense that cannot do anything. Maybe we do have to call it differently than if you were just to look at your spreadsheet and say, it says we're on the 50-yard line and it's 4th and 6. That means go. That's not the way that it is. And that's not the way that a lot of coaches do it. But I just think that Mike Macdonald doing it that way and coaching this game individually, I think it really played out well for him. I mean, by the time they scored their first touchdown, the game was essentially over anyway, because the Seahawks played it so smartly and squeezed every drop out of the first 2.5 quarters that they could, and they didn't get thirsty for more, and so they did not present any opportunities for the Patriots to get into the game based off of a mistake from the Seahawks. They knew that they couldn't do that, and so we're going with this game and this opponent, and we're coaching it right to that. I just thought it was really, really impressive the way that they did that.
You are reminding me of a certain Vikings team coached by a certain member of the Seattle Seahawks right now. Let's get into that comparison and see if it has any relevance going forward here in the future. We do want to take care of our sponsors, thanks to Aquarius Home Services.
Scott for Aquarius, your authorized independent Connecticut dealer. It's 2026 and time to fix your problem water. Time to enjoy spotless dishes, softer skin, cleaner laundry, and say goodbye to funny taste and odors. Upgrade today and enjoy no payments and no interest for 6 months on a new high-efficiency Kinetico water treatment system. Schedule your free water test at AquariusHomeservices.com. Financing based on credit approval. Aquarius, earning the right to be recommended.
I want to tell you about Onyx Maps, Onyx Hunt, and Onyx Fish. Have you ever driven past a piece of land and wonder who owns that, or maybe you need to know exactly where a property line runs? That's where Onyx Hunt comes in, and it's not just for hunters. There are folks using Onyx for their jobs every day throughout the country, from farmers and ranchers mapping out their fields, wildland firefighters navigating rough terrain, to construction workers needing to know who owns what property. This app offers something for everyone. If you need the best land ownership maps, aerial imagery, and property boundaries in your pocket, Onyx Hunt is the tool for the job. Try it free for 7 days. Download Onyx Hunt in the app or Google Play Store, or visit onyxmaps.com/hunt to get started. So I'm remembering now, Alex has been around for a while now. And Leslie Frazier, those who didn't like him as a head coach, thought kind of would criticize him as someone who wasn't an analytics guy. And I think back to that 2012 team. They're coming off a disastrous 2011, following a pretty disastrous 2010. And Leslie's the head coach. He's got Adrian Peterson, some good young players on defense, including Harrison Smith. Not much else. That team just didn't have much. They were rebuilding. Christian Ponder's their quarterback. And what did Leslie do? He didn't care. The other modern piece of thinking that's become almost too popular is, if the safety comes down near the box, you can't run the ball, right? Mm-hmm. That season, the Vikings went to the playoffs by running the ball against 11-man fronts, by not letting Christian Ponder lose games for them, not airing the ball out, not taking any chances, punting if you're on 4th and 3, no matter where you were on the field, kicking field goals when you got the chance. But Leslie didn't care about any of the analytic stuff. And for the team he had, he coached them perfectly. They literally, you can go back and watch film. There literally were between 8 and 11 players on the line of scrimmage trying to stop Adrian Peterson. And guess what they'd do? They'd run Adrian Peterson and they'd make it work, because if you block it and you have a great back, it doesn't matter if there are 11 people down on the line of scrimmage.
It was, that team had no business being in the playoffs. And I remember covering that season, and just like the conversation around it about how important it was to develop Christian Ponder, about, making him your franchise quarterback and putting him in positions to succeed and all that. And Leslie just really took that and didn't sort of, get seduced by that part of it and saying, I'm going to be the coach that develops the franchise quarterback, and that's going to be my calling card, and look what I did. He really understood that Christian Ponder had a lot of limitations, but there were a few things that he could do okay to get them through. And then meanwhile, they had the superhuman running back that could just do things in a different way than anyone else was doing it. And so it was an incredible coaching job by Leslie Frazier. It was, the ability for him to shut out the outside pressures, to stay true to his plan and to what went out. I mean, it was really, really impressive. And, I think we talked about it a little bit last week, Jim, but like the fact that he never got another chance when he did that, when that is on his resume, it really doesn't sit well with me. And just the way you look at this last hiring cycle, and 10 positions are open and not one coach of color gets it. I don't want to be a soapbox guy or anything, but like Leslie Frazier is just a great leader and deserved a second chance, whether he's black, white, or anything. And the fact that he hasn't gotten it it's just unfortunate, to say the least.
Yeah, I don't spend a lot of time worrying about what people say in comments or, chat sections or on social media. I do remember when I said basically these same things in the late 2000s. Hey, Leslie Frazier should be a candidate. She should be out there. The amount of anger. It wasn't just people disagreeing with me. They're angry that I would bring up Leslie Frazier's name. Just completely missing what Leslie is and what he accomplished when, and I think I've said it on this show before. I haven't said it here. I've said it elsewhere. The behind the scenes story of that era was, okay, the Vikings were coming off Brad Childress, who was a divisive figure in the locker room, divisive figure in the organization. He won a lot of games. He almost got him to the Super Bowl. But he had very little internal support. When things went south, they were going to go south really hard, and he was going to be out of there very fast. They really hired Leslie Frazier just to settle things down while they regrouped. And they stuck with that plan. And as soon as Leslie had one bad season, they got rid of him, and they went out and got Mike Zimmer, who was their guy. But they never intended to keep Leslie long term. And I think that was a mistake.
Yeah, I think so, Jim. I mean, when you look at, I can't say for sure that if they stayed with Leslie Frazier and didn't go to Mike Zimmer, that things would have gone incredibly different, because Zimmer had some good years as well.
Zimmer's first 4 years were pretty flawless. I mean, I'm actually not ripping on Mike Zimmer or the hiring of Mike Zimmer. Mike Zimmer did a lot of good stuff before things soured with him. I'm just saying Leslie Frazier deserved a little more, consideration.
Grace. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I totally agree. And I do think that part of this for owners who look to hire coaches is that a lot of coaches get much better the second time around, after sitting in that spot. And I don't think enough consideration is given for the flaws on the roster that Leslie dealt with. But also that, yes, I think that he would operate slightly differently the second time around, just knowing everything and how it works and what to look out for and how to prepare and how to handle things, than he would have the first time. I mean, look at what happened with Tony Dungy. Look what happened with just Belichick. All of these guys, it doesn't guarantee that you're going to be better the second time around, but the number of guys who have gotten second chances and compared to Leslie Frazier, who has not, I mean, it's apples and oranges. Kind of when you look at some of these guys who have been able to go wait a minute, you're hiring this guy again, and a guy like Leslie Frazier is out there. And I just think that in the end, Leslie has almost been too dignified for his own good. Mm-hmm. He's not a politicker behind the scenes. He is not going to have some agent back channeling with teams that might be firing their coach and maybe, hey, you need to look at my guy. And, he's just always done things the right way. And look, he's had a great, very long career. He's made a ton of money. He just won the Super Bowl. So things are great for Leslie Frazier, but he deserved to get another chance to run a team, and that's just the bottom line. And I think it was a miss by most owners in the league over this last 7-8 years that they didn't go and give him a shot.
Yes. All right. My bold prediction: neither of these teams are in the Super Bowl next year. Agree? Disagree?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, yes, I think I would agree with that. One thing that was really interesting to me, Jim, is I heard some stat about this, and, it's natural and understandable if you're a Patriots fan to say, hey, we got Jake May. He's just in his second year. He's going to be amazing. This is only upward from here. He's going to learn from this, come back stronger. You have Vrabel, everything's going to be great. But I think that Jalen Hurts is the only quarterback who lost his first Super Bowl and then got back to it and won. It was something like that. I don't want to butcher it, but basically saying that it is very unlikely, history would show, that Drake May ever plays in a Super Bowl again, which is crazy to think about. It's crazy to think about that. And maybe he will buck that trend, and maybe it will be, no problem for him and he'll get back. But when a young quarterback loses his first Super Bowl, he almost never gets back. And that just kind of blew my mind of holy cow, maybe this is Marino, and maybe we don't see him, ever again. Who knows? But it will be interesting to watch how the Patriots especially kind of pivot and try to adapt from what they saw, because he was outclassed for most of the playoffs and definitely in the Super Bowl.
And the Patriots got to play a very easy schedule this year.
Yes.
I think Drake May's a legit, very good player. Mm-hmm. I think Vrabel's a guy I would have hired if I were an NFL owner. So I don't think their success was unearned or flukish. I just think you're looking at a conference where the Ravens are going to reboot with Lamar Jackson. The Bengals are going to reboot with Joe Burrow. The Chiefs are going to reboot with Patrick Mahomes. As good as May is, the Bills with Josh Allen, as good as May is, he might finish 8th or 22nd in the MVP voting next year, playing against a tougher schedule with those guys, with those franchises rebooting around great proven quarterbacks. I just can't assume a success for them. Yeah,
I totally agree. I also don't think it guarantees that this was just an anomaly and they just feasted on cupcakes. Because I like Drake May's physical tools. It looks like he has a good handle on the job, on being a leader. There are a lot of things to feel very good about Drake May going forward. But, there are still question marks, because he's going to have to do it against, a tougher schedule. He's going to have to kind of just continue to prove that he can adapt to the scouting of his game and all of those things as well. And so it by no means is assured that they are just going to take the next step next year. I mean, you hear coaches say this in any sport, but I think especially in football, success isn't linear. You cannot just assume that, they got to the Super Bowl this year, the quarterback's really young, and so it's step forward. What if they botch the draft coming up? What if they don't get offensive line help? What if they don't get, some receiver help, things like that? There are a million things that can get in the way of the Patriots becoming another, kind of going on another 10-year run of just consistent success that is just lurking around every corner. And that's what makes, what they did with Belichick and Brady just unassailable. The way that they were able to sustain success over that amount of time was just incomprehensible in a league that is designed to make teams take a couple of years forward and then come crashing down and have to rebuild and retool. So, we'll see. But I'm going to be really interested to see how they handle the attention and the expectations, because there is no more enjoyable experience as a sports fan than the unexpected success season. Holy cow. This just came out of nowhere. This is so much fun. No one expected anything. Now next year, if you start out 0-2, there's going to be boos and there's going to be angst and there's going to be heightened expectations on it. And how all those guys handle that is just going to be crucial to, what they are able to do going forward here.
Even the Patriots dynasty that led to 6 Super Bowl wins is proof of how hard it is, because they had long gap between Super Bowl victories where it looked like they'd never win one again. And their biggest victories were all last-second field goals. Vinatieri is in the Hall of Fame because they needed him to kick 50-yard field goals with time running out to win the Super Bowls. They barely beat Carolina in the Super Bowl. They needed Malcolm Butler to make a crazy play in the goal line to win that Super Bowl. They barely beat the Rams in the big upset that started the dynasty. I mean, even the Patriots' success was, skin of your teeth type, success. I mean, they did not blow people out.
They didn't blow people out. They inflated the football or deflated the football.
Yep. They cheated.
But no, it's, that is what this NFL game is now. It is constructed to have close games between teams that are generally on the same level, like parity and tight games. That's what it's built on. That's what the public loves. And so you are walking a razor's edge every single week. And there are very, very few teams who anymore you just bum rush the league all the way through, blowing people out and then get in the playoffs and cruise. That just does not happen very often, and certainly doesn't happen over multiple years that way. You're going to have some luck. You're going to have the wind blow your way. And, it's just really, really hard to do. And so it's interesting to think about, what if this is the height of the Drake May era? Like it's entirely possible. And it wouldn't shock me if that was the case.
And I remember going down to do a story in Dan Marino one year in Miami and, talking to Gary Stevens, his quarterback guru. And basically those guys are saying he's the best passer in NFL history. Now they were biased, but they also had great, they had great perspective and history. And they're like, this guy's the best pure thrower. He couldn't move. He wasn't a great athlete, but best pure thrower in NFL history. And he went to one Super Bowl and didn't win it. So, which speaks to the ongoing, ever-present debates about, do you have to win Super Bowls to be a great quarterback? Of course you don't, but it's hard not to view it that way. It's the tiebreaker. It's the separator.
It's the tiebreaker. Yep, absolutely. And like you think about, just think about Josh Allen and everything that he's gone through. He is remarkable. He's an unbelievable player, maybe the best player in the league. But, there's a couple of games where, like, what was the game in Kansas City where they were like 30 seconds away from winning and Mahomes drives down and gets, like, there are so many things outside of a quarterback's control in this game. This is not the NBA, where if you have one of the top 5 players, you're generally going to be in the playoffs and deep in the playoffs every year. There are penalties that your defensive line can make on 3rd and 3 that extend a drive for an offense. There are a punter can shank a punt and put the team in a bad situation. A receiver can drop a ball. Like there's just there are so many components to winning in the NFL every week that when you get to these points, man, you just got to take advantage of them, because who knows if you're ever going to get another chance.
So football season's over. Speculation season begins right now. I think we're going to do things a little differently than most shows during this offseason, John. I think we're going to go reverse order. We're going to start with our 6th round mock draft next week. So I want you to just break it down for me.
That's why people keep coming to us, because in a sea of first round mocks, come on in to the 6th round and see what long snapper they're going to draft from Idaho State. And you will hear it here first on the Viking Update Show.
Have I got a backup kicker for you? Good stuff, John. Yes. Good stuff, John. I appreciate it. Thanks to Davide, our producer. Thanks to everyone at TalkNorth.com, our sponsors, everyone who listens and watches. We do appreciate it. Please check out the John Krasinski Show on the always fascinating Minnesota Timberwolves, and we will talk to you next week.